Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Getting Started as a Pre-Professional Student webinar. My name is Julie Ammon Maddox, and I'm the Assistant Director in the Class Academic Advising Center. And I have the privilege of leading our pre-professional advising team. So I've been at Grand Valley, almost 8 years now. I love it at Grand Valley, so hopefully you all do too. I hope move-in went well and that you're gearing up for the start of the semester. So welcome, we're glad to have you here. We are recording this, so we're gonna be sending out a link after the meeting. So if you have any friends that had to miss it, just let them know that we will be recording and sending out the link to everybody who initially got the invitation in the first place. So. All right, another just a housekeeping item. You guys are all muted, but we do encourage you to ask questions in the chat. So if you go to the bottom of the screen, you'll see that there should be a chat function, and you can ask any questions there. Danny Lauer is one of our advisors. She's going to be kind of compiling the questions, and then she'll be asking those at the end, and we'll take turns answering them. So hopefully you leave today with some really good information about how to get started as a pre-professional student. So we work with seven different professions in our office. We work with pre-chiropractic, pre-dental, pre-med, pre-pharmacy, podiatry, optometry, and veterinary, okay? Some of the professions you don't see up here are physician assistant, PT, physical therapy, occupational therapy. We still work with students who have majors in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences who might be pursuing those areas. But the College of Health Professions actually works more directly with those students when they're getting ready to apply. So I have a poll here. I just kind of want to get a feel for who's in our audience. Let me see if I can pull up a poll. If you guys bear with me, this is the first time I've done a poll in Zoom, so hopefully this works okay. So I'm gonna have it up on the screen. I'm gonna give you guys a few minutes to answer this poll question, okay? So here it is. And there's actually 3 questions, so go ahead and look at all 3 of those. Just kind of want to get a sense of who's in our audience today. So what we're looking at here is what profession you're preparing for, where you come from, where you're originally from, and then what best describes you, what kind of major you've declared, or if you're still deciding on a major. And then I'll show the results here. I'll give you another like 10 seconds to fill this out. Okay, we're gonna end the polling. Just so you know, there's 97 of you on here today, so that's awesome. Thank you all so much for participating. So I'm gonna go ahead and we'll share the results here. Okay, so as you can see, about 65% of you are pursuing becoming a physician. So we call you pre-med. You're pursuing being a physician as an MD or a DO. 14% of you are pre-dental, 7% are pre-pharmacy, 4% are optometry and veterinary, and 3% are pre-chiropractic. So we have a couple of others down there too. Looks like the east side of Michigan one is the most of you are from there, but pretty good split between east side and west side of Michigan. We got a few people from the northern Michigan or Upper Peninsula, about the same number from out of state, and a few international students. That's great. All right, and it looks like the majority of you have declared a science major. Some have declared a non-science major, and that's great. You can major in anything you want and be pre-professional. Obviously, you do need to get some of the science courses out of the way, but that's great. And then some of you are still deciding on your major. but know your career, and some of you are just kind of still deciding on everything, which is perfectly normal and fine. So thank you all for participating in that. Okay, so I'm going to go to our next slide here. All right, so as I said, my name is Julie. I'm the assistant director in the center, and we have the other advisors on the line, so I'm going to let them jump in and introduce themselves. Brian, are you here?
Hi, everyone. My name is Brian Eichenhout. I work as an advisor in the same office as Julie, working with our pre-professional students. I work primarily with students who have a major psychology, behavioral neuroscience, biomedical science, sociology, exercise science. I feel like I always leave one out, and pre-med students. So if you ever have questions about any of those, you can always reach out to me. My email address is there, and then in just a little bit, we'll talk about how to set up an appointment as well. I also advise the pre-SOMA group, which is for our students who are looking at pre-med going the DO route, and then pre-podiatry.
All right, thanks, Brian. But Danny.
Hi, everyone. My name is Danny, and I joined the pre-professional advising team back in November, so still in my first year, but have learned a lot. And I work with actually the same majors as Brian, so I won't repeat those, but we see the same majors, and I get to co-advise the pre-med club with Julie. So if you attend pre-med club, we'll hopefully see you there. And then I just recently started advising the pre-chiropractic club as well. So if you're a pre-chiro student, maybe I'll see you at club sometime also. So nice to meet you all, and glad you're all here.
All right, Alexis.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Grand Valley. I'm Alexis Shavy, also an advisor in the Class Advising Center. I also work with behavioral neuroscience and psychology students, but my majors are also a little different. I work with a lot of our hard sciences, biomedical science, biology, chemistry, biochemistry, cell molecular biology, microbiology, and physics. I think I got them all. Advise all the pre-professional programs. Specifically, I am one of the club advisors for the Pre-Pharmacy Association, the Pre-Dental Club, and the Pre-Optometry Club. So if you are in any of those fields, we would love to have you join our clubs.
All right, and then Andrea.
Hi. So my name is Andrea Johnson. I'm the graduate assistant, second year grad. And I work in the office with all of these lovely advisors. I see a lot of the similar majors that Alexis noted, bio, chem, biomedical, anyone who's pre-professional, I also see, and I pop into clubs now and then. I love seeing all of you after hours kind of and getting to know you outside the office, but I'm excited that you're here, and I look forward to working with you all.
All right, thanks everyone. And then Allison and Marlene also work in our office. Marlene is our office coordinator, so she runs our front desk. And then Allison is our advising assistant. She's sometimes at the front desk, but she also assists us with a lot of other things like website and things like that. So just so you know who we are and what we do. I should have mentioned, I see the same majors as Alexis does, so all the science majors. And then all the pre-professions. And then also I advise the pre-med club and the pre-MD PhD club and the pre-professional council, the health sciences council. They just changed their name. So that's who we are. Then we'll go to Brian next.
You've been able to meet us today, and that's something that we want to continue your academic journey as you're at Grand Valley. And you'll come to find that we have some really good resources for you in terms of academics, but also some professional opportunities as well. So here's kind of how to get in touch with us. We had our email addresses on the previous slide, but through appointments is kind of our main way to really connect with you. So if you go to our main website. It's gvsu.edu/class advising. You can click on schedule an appointment, and then there's a pre-professional advising blurb, and then you can find more information about how to do that. You can also call that number, the 616-331-8585, and speak with one of our front desk staff that will then set you up with an appointment as well. But yeah, we usually meet with students once a semester, a couple times a semester, you know, just to kind of keep in touch and make sure that you're on track with everything. This semester will be a little bit unique to most semesters in that our appointments are going to take mostly through Zoom or phone. Our office doesn't allow for great social distancing practices to occur, so we're trying to keep safe, and Zoom and phone are kind of the ways that we've determined that that's going to do that. The first week of classes, so next Monday through Friday, we will have virtual appointments that are drop-in. So if you have any quick questions, or you're looking at a certain section of a lab and need to change something around, you'll be able to go and virtually. And that's going to be through the use of Navigate. You'll start hearing about this Navigate program quite a bit, but this is where you can schedule appointments, take advantage of tutoring opportunities and different services on campus, but all of that's kind of housed into one place. But for next week, that's going to be Monday through Friday, 9 to noon, and then 1 to 4 p.m. A couple of things to kind of keep in mind is if you're changing your major, you should try to schedule that appointment with the advisor where you're going to the new major. And then if you're double majoring, schedule that with the person that you have the most questions for. And it may turn out that you end up having 2 appointments, and usually we can try to make that so it's back to back, or at least on the same day. But often that's a team approach where you may have to meet with a couple of people to kind of plan how, you know, if you're an English major and pre-med, how does that look and how does that coincide? It sometimes takes 2 people to kind of look at that.
Sorry about that. I was muted. All right, let me go back to the previous slide here. Okay, so our medical school fact sheet, I believe Danny's putting some links in the chat so you can get to our fact sheets. But we have a fact sheet for each profession. So there's one for pharmacy, there's one for veterinary, dental, all the professions you all are looking at. And they all look similar to this. So it's going to tell you what the recommended courses are to take in preparation for your professional school. And so more than likely, you're going to see a lot of science courses on here. And hopefully you're in some of those classes this semester and this year. There's also some admission stats on here. So we try to look at like recent years nationally, what is the trend looking like as far as, you know, the testing score and the GPA that you're going to need to be a competitive applicant. So most of these professions, they look at a total GPA and they count any retake courses. So if you had to repeat a course, they're going to count both attempts of that course. So it's really crucial to do really well in these courses from the get-go. Brian's going to talk a little bit more in depth about our tutoring services later on, but we have free tutoring and we're doing virtual tutoring this fall. So definitely take advantage of that so you can start off strong with a good GPA. You can, like I said earlier, you can choose any major you'd like and attend med school or pharmacy school or any of these programs. So if you haven't chosen a major yet, please make an appointment with one of us and we can kind of help guide you towards where your interests lie and what might fit best with your professional program later on. We've had students who are Spanish majors apply to med school. We've had business majors apply to dental school. So really you can major in anything you want. It's just, if you pick a major that's science, it's gonna overlap the most with these classes, meaning you might not be taking a ton of additional courses to get that second degree. However, your GPA and MCAT are really important, or your test score, but they do a holistic admissions review. So I believe Alexis is going to talk next about the holistic review that medical schools and all these professional schools look at.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Let me get my screen share up here. Okay, pre-professional team. Can you confirm, is that the second page? Okay. All right, great, thank you. So Julie kind of alluded to the fact that there is a holistic review that's involved for all of the professions that we're talking about today. We know that GPA and test scores are critical to being competitive, but just as much, it's also really critical that you are a competitive applicant and have experiences outside the classroom that show that you are also ready for these professions. So all the professional fact sheets have page 2, which is focused more on how to gain experiences out of the classroom to stay competitive. There's so much information on here, way more than I'm going to cover or we are going to cover today. So I really encourage you to look at these in detail, ideally before you come in for your first appointment. But there are some things here that we really want to highlight, and so I want to kind of go through some of those. One of the first things that's up here is clinical experience. We know that clinical experience can really set aside an applicant and make them competitive. And clinical experience kind of falls into 2 groups. There's really active experience and more passive experience. So active experience would be something like if you're a nurse tech or a CNA and you're maybe working in a nursing home. Maybe you're a volunteer and you're working in a hospice setting. Maybe you're a phlebotomist. So all of these things that might be paid or volunteer, it really doesn't matter if they're paid or volunteer. It just matters that you're getting experience working with patients directly and really developing that patient care and that bedside manner. The other piece of clinical experience that's important, it's more passive. You're probably familiar with the term shadowing, and that's going to allow you to be able to know a little bit more about what the profession entails. What does it mean to be a chiropractor? What does it mean to be a dentist or a veterinarian or a physician? What does that day-to-day look like? And so you also want to get shadowing experiences that help you understand both sides of those. I wanted to kind of step away from the fact sheet and show you some of the resources that we have on our website to support that. So if you go to the Preprofessional website, so there's a link on there from the fact sheets. And if you're on this page here, you'll see that we have resources set up for each of our sub areas. So let's just use pre-med as an example. If you go to the pre-med page, we do have a link here for shadowing opportunities. I want to mention first a few key points. First and foremost, if you know any family friends, your own personal network, absolutely use those to your advantage. Talk to family. If they're in healthcare and they're doing something that you're interested in doing, see if you can do an informational interview. See if you can come in and shadow them and see what they do day to day. So it's really important to network. Next time you're at the dentist and say, hey, do you ever let students come in? I think I might want to I want to be a dentist, and so I want to know more about what you do. For those connections that you may not have, we've tried to gather these shadowing opportunities. So we have a list, say for instance, for med, some physicians in the area who have mentioned that they're available for students to shadow. I do want to mention, and you're probably all aware, the fact that we're in a pandemic, very hard sometimes to get shadowing. These places might have protocols in place where they can't have outside volunteers coming in to shadow. So the point is to just kind of do your best and know that you've got several years to sort of develop the shadowing hours and being able to go in and see what professionals do. But we are here to help you as best as we can to connect you. And then on the dental and the pharmacy and so on, we have some shadowing resources there too. The other piece I wanted to mention, healthcare volunteering and experience. So we have a link here on our website, and that will bring you to a guide here. What we've tried to do over the years is really note those hands-on active things that students are doing that are really meaningful in developing that patient care. So we've developed a list of resources here. I'm not going to go into what's in the virtual volunteer because Danny will do that in a few minutes, but we've got some outside resources that you can check out. In terms of healthcare training, these are some of the areas that we know students can do without having an advanced degree or even a bachelor's degree. Usually a couple weeks of training or certifications will allow you to maybe become a CNA or become an EMT. These are the types of fields that a lot of our students are going into to get that patient care. And if you click on here, it'll give you some information pertaining to how to connect in the West Michigan community for those fields. And then lastly, we have kind of a searchable database here of volunteer and healthcare experience. It could be paid, it could be unpaid, but we have some keywords here that you can search. So if you were interested in, let's say, animals, it's going to pop up some potential sites that you could get connected with. This first one's an interesting one. Camp Casey does birthday parties for kids with cancer. So right there we have something that our pre-vet students might be interested in because they bring a horse to these birthday parties for kids who have cancer, and so they need pre-vet students who are comfortable working with animals and horses to kind of manage that side of it, and then they need volunteers to work with the kids and kind of help make it a positive experience. So there's a lot of ideas here. We just know that there's a lot of questions pertaining to getting experience, and so we want to know that you've got those resources. The other thing I wanted to talk about is clubs. So sometimes it can be overwhelming while you're starting at Grand Valley and you're thinking about doing well in classes, getting clinical experience, trying to be competitive from day one, and we don't want you to walk away from this workshop feeling overwhelmed. So what I would say is, if anything else, clubs are a great way to get involved from week one at Grand Valley. And we're really fortunate that we have a student club for all of our professional areas. So all of the 7 professions we mentioned, they all have a club that's dedicated so you can get resources, you can learn more about the field, you can connect to other students at Grand Valley who are interested in the same things. I do want to show you LakerLink, and hopefully you might have encountered this through some of our other startup events, but LakerLink, there is a link on the fact sheets to this site. This is like the hub of all student organizations at Grand Valley. So you can see, I'm already connected to some of these down here, but if I wanted to do a search and look for, say, some service organizations, I could come in here, I can do some filtering, I can take a look and see what's out here. And if I wanted to join, say, Alternative Breaks, I can read a little bit more and I can put my request in to join. LakerLink is great in terms of getting information. And then tonight we're really fortunate we have our Laker involvement fairs, and all of the pre-professional clubs are scheduled for Laker involvement fairs from 6 to 8 tonight. So I'll talk in a few minutes more about that. I think that, like I said, I don't want to go into everything here. Some of my colleagues are going to cover this as well. But one of the last points I wanted to highlight, it's really important to stay connected to our office. I hope that's come through when we've talked about appointments and coming in and meeting with advisors. The other thing that you can do to help yourself is join our Google groups. We have a pre-med Google group, a pre-dental. We have one for all of our professional areas. And it's a way to sign up for a listserv so that you get regular announcements and updates pertaining to maybe just information about the profession at large. Maybe it's things pertaining to the schools, the professional programs in Michigan. Maybe it's just things that Grand Valley's doing, or maybe events that we are doing out of our office. particularly when you're getting ready to apply to these programs, we send out a lot of helpful tips and tricks. So I would suggest follow the instructions that are on each of the guides and join for the group that you're interested in. So that way during your time at Grand Valley, you know that you're going to stay connected. And I will stop sharing my screen and I'm going to send it back to you, Julie.
All right, so as Alexis mentioned, getting experience is really helpful and honestly necessary for you when you're applying to different professional schools. And we know and recognize that that might be a little bit more challenging with the global pandemic that we're in the midst of. So we really want to help you brainstorm and think of creative ways that you can still get that experience even in the midst of COVID-19. And so I'm going to go through just a few of those things and then make sure at the end that I'll send you links in the chat to everything that I mentioned. And then we also will have this on our website too. So don't feel like you have to memorize or remember everything that we're saying. We'll make sure you have the links and the information. But just to kind of get your mind thinking this way a little bit, one of the resources that we have access to is the National Association of Advising for Health Professions. They came up with a crowdsourced document that is really helpful. It has a lot of opportunities, a lot of ideas. It's the national organization that all of us advisors are a part of, and we all collaborate. Everyone from around the country collaborates to help you. And so we have a really great document. I'll make sure to link that. And it's updated regularly. So if you bookmark it on your computer and just continually check it, you'll find a lot of great opportunities and ideas there. Another one that's more GVSU related is the Office of the President has the GVSU Called to Serve. It's Reaching Higher Together. And it's a website that you can check out with different opportunities and ways that our campus community is helping our greater community in ways that you can get involved there. Similarly, on more of a local state level, the state of Michigan has a really great website where they have different volunteer opportunities specific to COVID-19. And I'm looking at it right now. There's all kinds of really interesting opportunities with medical volunteers, public health, if you're interested in kind of learning more about what public health is about and how you might contribute to that as a healthcare professional. Helping older adults, so maybe going to get groceries or helping older folks doing things that maybe that is a little less safe for them to do now because of the pandemic, and all kinds of different opportunities. So make sure to check out that. And again, I'm going to put all the links in the chat so you can find that easily. Another really good opportunity is Michigan COVID Sitters. And this is an organization that we learned about from one of our Grand Valley grads, actually, who is a medical student at Michigan State. And this organization supports healthcare workers by doing various things for them. They've done grocery shopping and babysitting, things like that. And right now they're not actually offering in-home services, but virtual tutoring is really needed. So if that's something that you might be interested in, definitely check out COVID Sitters. Virtual fairs, seminars, info sessions, and shadowing, those are all really good opportunities where you can still learn and still be connected to various things that you might be doing in person, but in a virtual format. And so definitely subscribe to the Google groups and we'll give you information on how to do that, because we actually send out information. So when a medical school or a dental school or pharmacy school is having their, what maybe would have been an in-person session, they'll do it virtually, and then we'll make sure you have that information so you can learn about those schools and attend a webinar kind of like this. And then there is a really cool opportunity we learned about with the University of Colorado where you can do some virtual shadowing of some of their ER doctors. And so we'll give you the information for that, but super cool opportunity to be able to do shadowing, which is kind of a difficult thing to do these days. And they're providing an opportunity for you to do that. And then finally, the upcoming election actually provides us with a lot of opportunities to get involved in the community. And so you can be assisting with events on campus, getting students registered to vote, serving as a poll watcher, or even working at a local precinct to just be an active citizen in the community. You do have to be registered to vote, which definitely registered to vote either way. And you can look at the Grand Rapids City website and you can find more information about that. So again, just a few different opportunities. I know it's definitely more challenging these days to get some of the normal activities that you might have considered previously, but again, make sure to connect with us and let us know how we can be helpful to you, and we'll make sure to get you connected in the right places.
Okay, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the resources that we have available to help enhance your application for professional school. First, Julie had mentioned a little bit about tutoring. We have tutoring available on campus where you can schedule it to be a pretty consistent thing. So if you want it every Tuesday at 1 in the afternoon, you can meet with somebody for a particular class and have that scheduled throughout the semester. And that's offered for all of our 1 and 200 level classes. We also have drop-in tutoring centers. So we have the Chemistry Success Center, the Statistics, the Math, the Biology and Biomedical Sciences drop-ins, Physics Help Corner, lots of different subject areas where if you have a quick question or just need help with, studying for a test or a quiz coming up, you can go in there and drop in. This particular semester, again, as you guys will probably hear quite a bit, the drop-in centers will be offered virtually. So we're going to be using Blackboard Collaborate to allow students to use file sharing and different whiteboards to be able to get help with any sort of questions that you might have. All of our tutors end up, you need to have, I think, a B+ or higher in that subject area and get faculty recommendations to be a tutor. So you're getting some of the brightest students. And with that, a lot of our students who are pre-professional, you're not getting tutoring because, be as well-versed in a certain subject area. It's, hey, I've got that B+, I want to see if I can get an A- or an A in that particular subject. Another area is the Community Service Learning Center. So this is kind of in conjunction with some of those shadowing and different experiences that both Julie and Alexis were talking about. But this particular center offers opportunities for you to get involved with volunteering. So examples might be alternative breaks or Habitat for Humanity or working in a local school district. Or a homeless shelter, but different ways that you can kind of work with people and help your community. Some of those same kind of themes that Danny was alluding to as well. Another area that students will often get involved with is research. There are some professional schools that like to see research and others that don't place such an emphasis on it, but it's still something that they value. And you'll want to look into those kind of individually. But there's research projects that you could do where maybe you work, with one professor one-on-one and you do a project for a semester, or you could be part of a team where maybe there's 3 to 5 other students that work with that same professor and they're looking to publish some research. Or it could be something that's more long-term. So I've seen students do a year or 2 of research, and that's something that looks really good when they put that on an application. I don't think it's too early to ever start research. Typically that's something that, there are some faculty who they're totally fine if a student doesn't have any like statistics or research methods courses. Others might want you to be, through those particular courses or at a certain class standing, maybe sophomore, junior standing. So it kind of depends on the professor, but you can check these out. If you go to each department website, they have different areas of research by each faculty that you can kind of check into and sort of get a gauge of what those expectations would be. And then lastly, the Career Center is another office that we work pretty closely with. We hold a lot of events looking at, what could I do with this particular major, or what could I do with this particular professional school. They offer assistance on getting your resume polished, looking for different internships that are in the area. And while we do a great job on our website of listing those, they have some others that are maybe outside of the medical field or the professional field that are helpful. And then we also have some mock interviews that they'll do. So eventually when you go to these professional schools, you'll have to do some interviewing, and they'll do some scenarios to kind of help you with that. Our office does some of that work as well, but we do kind of a different approach from what they typically are doing.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about some events and workshops. It's kind of a difficult time to talk about some of our events because we still aren't too sure on if they're going to be virtual or how they're going to be held this year. But just for the future, this is what we've done in the past, and we try to do these events every year. We'll see what happens with the COVID-19 pandemic, but here's just another reason to get signed up for those Google groups so that you don't miss any invitations to some of these events. So Michigan State College of Human Medicine typically puts on a suture clinic for us in the fall semester and in the winter semester. So for the suture clinic, they teach you different types of suturing techniques on pig's feet. You'll see some white blobs on here because we're not actually allowed to show the pig's feet. But if you are able to go to that, hopefully we'll be able to do that. We'll see how it goes this year, but more to come on that. Also, a lot of the clubs will do professional school visits. So this is when I went with the Pre-Dental Club to the Marquette School of Dentistry. Again, a lot of the professional schools are not doing visits right now, but that may change throughout the school year. So if you get involved in the clubs, you'll be able to connect with the different schools as well. A lot of the schools are doing virtual tours or doing virtual events that you can join. We usually have our health professional and graduate school fair in the spring semester, sorry, the winter semester. So it's usually in March, where we bring professional schools from all over the country will come, and you can talk to admission reps about what they're looking for. And then we also do mock interviews for students. We're looking at doing our mock interviews virtually this fall because a lot of the professional schools have moved to virtual interviewing. And so there's an extra, set of things that you need to keep in mind for virtual interviews as opposed to in person. So we're going to be offering those. We work with the Career Center on a lot of our events as well. A couple other events that aren't on here. Campus Life Night is moving to the Laker Involvement Fair, which Alexis mentioned earlier, and we'll talk to you about it again before we're done, but that's right after this event for the professional programs, so make sure that you check that out. And then we're looking at doing a possible virtual event in October or November for Michigan Medical Education Day. It's a day that all the medical schools come together, all the pre-med students in Michigan, and they put on a pre-med conference. So you'll get more details about that as well. More than likely, we're going to be having another version of this called Getting Started as a Pre-Professional Student. Sometime during the fall semester. It'll be a little bit more in depth than this, but it'll be good to come to that as well if you're interested. And we'll get more information out about that later once we get it scheduled. Real quick, we want to mention some of our special admission programs. So we have agreements. I'm going to start out with the medical schools. We have agreements with 5 of the 7 Michigan medical schools. So we have early assurances with Michigan State College of Human Medicine and Michigan State College of Osteopathic Medicine, Central Michigan and Wayne State Medical Schools. Early assurance programs are really geared towards students who come from maybe an underserved, disadvantaged background, or who want to work with populations that are underserved or underrepresented in medicine. And so, if students have a lot of volunteer work with underserved populations, if they've really shown a commitment to working with those who are in need, they would be good candidates for the early assurance programs. So typically students are applying for these EAPs in February of their junior or senior year. So it's not something you need to worry about applying for this year, but it is something to keep in mind as you go through your 4 years here. If you are going to be a junior, definitely come in and talk to one of us about the early assurance programs. We also have a separate program with Western Michigan called the WMed Start program, and it's an early decision program. So the timeline is the same as the early assurance programs. You apply during your junior or senior year in February. Actually, I think it was January 31st this year was the deadline. And for this program, they look for high achieving students who have, I can't remember the GPA off the top of my head right now, but it's around a 3.6 GPA, and they also look at SAT scores. So if you're interested in any of these programs, we just want to let you know about them right now. So if you're interested, you can start planning for them.
Okay. Thanks, Julie. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our pharmacy programs. We have 2 partnership programs, one with Ferris State University and the other with the University of Michigan. I'll talk first about our partnership with the University of Michigan. It's a preferred admit program, and it's essentially for students who are really interested in going there for their pharmacy program. And there's an option for you to apply at the end of your first year at Grand Valley. So if you do really well, they'll look at your grades from your first year at Grand Valley, and then you can get kind of that early guarantee that you're in their program. And you can start there for the PharmD program when you're done at Grand Valley. And then the partnership with Ferris is a little bit newer. That's going to have an option for you to apply as a junior at Grand Valley. And so we're still working out some of the details, but we're excited to have that as a new partnership. The other thing with Ferris, they have a mentoring program, and we have third-year pharmacy students who have offered to mentor our Grand Valley pre-pharmacy students. So if you're interested in connecting, in learning more about these programs, definitely schedule an appointment and talk to me. And then the next slide, I just wanted to kind of give a plug again for Laker Involvement Fairs. I mentioned that we have clubs for all of our professional areas. You'll see on screen, there's a list of all of the pre-professional clubs. Most of them are kind of self-explanatory. I do want to make sure that you know anybody who's interested in osteopathic medicine. There's the pre-soma club, and then there's also the pre-med club, which is the general medical club. So all of those clubs should have a Zoom link that's going active tonight from 6 to 8, and it's designed to be just like a drop-in space through the Laker Involvement Fairs. Hopefully you've heard about them, but if you go to LakerLink and you sign in, there should be some information there starting at 6 o'clock, and all you'll have to do is click on the link, and then you should be able to peruse the clubs of interest and kind of drop into their Zoom call and ask questions and learn more about what they're going to do this semester.
Okay, so as Brian mentioned, we are doing mostly virtual and phone appointments, but we did want you to know where our office location is, so that when it is safe to come in, you'll know. So it's in Mack Hall, C1120, and then our phone number is listed. Again, you can give that a call if you wanted to schedule an appointment, and then our office email as well as our office hours. Again, just trying to keep social distancing in mind. If you do have questions, our emails were at the beginning of this presentation, but if you have any questions, we're going to kind of open it up for questions at the end. So,
okay. I just want to jump in. It is just about 5 o'clock, and I know that we said this was going to go till 5, so if you do need to leave, feel free, but we are going to stay on and answer questions. And again, this will be recorded, and we'll be sending out a link afterwards. So I think Danny's been managing our chat and has some questions for us.
I do, yeah. And I just want to plug our social media pages as well. So I put some links in the chat to our social media accounts. We have a Facebook page and a Twitter account that are more specific to the class advising office as a whole. But then we have some specific to our pre-professional. We have an Instagram account where we share a lot of interesting information and helpful things for pre-professional students. And then we have a YouTube channel as well. And there's some really good stuff on our YouTube channel, especially when you get ready to write your personal statement and look for your application resources and things like that. There are some really great videos on our YouTube channel, so definitely go check that out, and all the links should be in there. So yes, I've been monitoring the chat and have some questions. So any of the advisors who want to answer, just I guess go for it. So the first one is about volunteering experiences, and the student was wondering, would it look better on an application to have one volunteer experience for 4 years or 4 experiences for 1 year each? Kind of sounds like a would you rather question.
I'll tackle that one first. I would say there's really not a one size fits all type of application. Everybody's application is going to look a little different. I would, what you want to do is you want to do something you're passionate about. If the one volunteer experience you did for 4 years, you just kind of did it because you thought it would look good, but you really weren't that into it. You know, they're going to be able to tell how passionate you are about these things when they interview you. So if it's something that's really near and dear to your heart and you really want to keep doing it, then keep doing it. But if it's something that you've tried for a while, you kind of want to try something new, go ahead and try something new. They do want to see that you haven't like just spent 1 day here and 1 day there. They want to see some, you know, depth and breadth to the application so that you've had some, you know, really long-term experiences, but do what you're passionate about. Alexis, did you want to add on to that at all?
Yeah, I was going to add one thing. Whatever you decide to do, help yourself out and make sure you log your experiences. So track them just in your own journal, Excel sheet, Google Doc, whatever it is. You will thank yourself in 4 or 5 years when you are applying to professional school that you don't have to remember all the details. I also saw a few people after I presented were asking for the link to the healthcare experience and volunteer site. So I just dropped that into the chat too.
So along those lines, how often would you say that students should be volunteering? How many hours a week? And I would probably say that depends on your schedule and what other things you have going on. But Julie, Alexis, Brian, any thoughts there?
Yeah, I would agree. You definitely want to put school first. You can always get more volunteer experiences later, but it's hard to fix a GPA that's kind of dipped. So, you know, definitely focus on school first. But, you know, I would like prioritize the clinical and experience, like the experience that's part of your profession, because you really want to get to know that field and to know that it's right for you. But then if you volunteer, maybe you do that every Saturday or something and you do it for a few hours, but you do it over a long period of time. It doesn't have to be a ton of hours per week. It can be a longer experience kind of spaced out. So yeah, the one thing is you don't want to overcommit. It's easy to do. There's so many opportunities and you want to help so much, but you know, start off picking up a thing or two here and there and then see what else you can add on later.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. So seeing some questions on timeline. So anyone want to kind of respond to some ideas around when we should start volunteering and getting experience in terms of what year shadowing would be helpful to start? And then I think there was another question on when students should start studying for the MCAT and then doing research. So kind of 4 big areas in terms of the whole timeline of your experience at GVSU, when those things. So I can answer a little bit, and then if the others want to jump in too. I would say volunteering should start probably now if you want to. I mean, maybe not necessarily tomorrow. Definitely get comfortable in your classes, get a good feel for your schedule, and don't overwhelm and overload yourself too much. You will have time. But volunteering, you know, start doing little things here and there. Your MCAT or professional school entrance exam, usually you start studying for that this semester before you take it. And you take it in the summer usually, and depends on the school, but other people can jump in on this as well. You take it usually in the summer, and then you would apply that summer and then go the following fall. So it's about a year and a half or so before you actually start school. So it's a pretty long process. So if you wanted to go to, let's say, a professional school after you graduate, like that fall, you'd probably start studying for your exam the winter semester of your junior year. Anybody else have a timeline with that? And then research as well, with someone was asking about research.
Yeah, I would agree with everything Danny said. Whenever people ask me when to take the MCAT, I say when you're ready. But you know, typically it is the junior year, that last semester of your junior year, you're starting to study, and then in May or June, you're taking your exam. Unless you're looking at a gap year. A lot of students get to junior year and they think, you know, I just don't feel like I'm ready. I don't feel like I've gotten enough experience. I don't think I've gotten enough shadowing. I just feel like if I had one more year, then I could really be more competitive. And it's completely fine to do a gap year. We have many students that do a gap year. In fact, I think nationally around 60% of people that are admitted have a gap year or more than one gap year. So ideally, you know, it's great to start professional school right after you graduate, but just know that it's not abnormal to have a gap year and apply after your senior year.
Along with that too, I just saw a question pop in the chat about resources for prepping for your professional exams, MCAT or other. We do offer a test prep course, and we always do that in the winter semester. So it's a course that we offer at GVSU. It's not a class that you take for credit, so it's just an extra thing that you would do. And we have professors come in and review the subject areas that are on your exam. So that's a really great course to take the semester that you begin studying for your professional exam. And it's just a really nice supplement. We don't recommend that that's the only thing you do for studying. There's a lot of other great studying resources out there. And correct me if I'm wrong, everyone, there's a website or a link on our website with resources, or we can share those with you as well. But yeah, lots of great resources. There's a lot of, everybody kind of has their own ideas of what resources they like the best and how, you know, they study the most and what's most helpful to them. So kind of looking through some of those options. Another question, we've got a lot of questions about studying abroad. So I thought maybe we could tackle that topic all together. So some questions around timeline again, like what year would be most helpful for studying abroad, good programs they would want to apply for, doing a study abroad versus research, and then different, maybe during the year versus during the summer. So does anyone want to kind of tackle study abroad a little bit?
I can jump in on that. So study abroad. The first thing I'll say is right now, a lot of programs are getting canceled, unfortunately. So hopefully they come back up and you're able to study abroad. Typically the best time for pre-professional students to study abroad is in the summer. A lot of that has to do with your sequencing of your science courses and things like that. Although we can work with you if you're willing to do summer courses, or if you wanted to go like 4.5 years or something like that. We can always work with whatever you want to do. We have some great summer programs. So Grand Valley has a few different types of study abroad programs. One are faculty led. And so you go with a group and a faculty member. and it's very structured. So you do things on the same day and you have things planned. For those of you in the honors college, or even if you're not in honors, there's a Ghana trip and a Haiti trip, and those trips are really great because they include some clinical experience for pre-health students. And even though they're honors, they do allow non-honors students to apply for those as well, and those occur in the summer. I think I saw a question, would it negatively affect your application to study abroad? I would say absolutely not. It's putting yourself outside your comfort zone. You're getting out there and learning about a different culture and learning about people different from you. So it's a great experience. The only time that it is negative, once in a while, students might be asked to do something in a clinical setting in another country that would be legal in that country, but it's not legal in the United States. Let's say you're observing a surgery and they ask if you want to help stitch up the person or something like that. That is not something that is ethical or legal to do in the US, so you shouldn't do it in another country. The other downfall to studying abroad is you don't want to do it the fall after you are applying, because you're going to be interviewing. So you don't want to have to like fly back and go to interviews. But other than that, there's really no drawbacks. It's a great opportunity, and it can count for issues requirements and the global perspectives for the Gen Ed program. So yeah, if you're interested, just make an appointment with one of us. We can talk to you about how to fit study abroad into your plan.
Sounds good. Let me see, what other things? Oh, there was a question about logging volunteer hours on a spreadsheet that they manage or logging through GVSU. I would say either or. It's probably helpful to keep a spreadsheet of your own as well if your opportunities aren't necessarily connected through campus. So in my opinion, I would maybe start a Google folder in your Google Drive account and do a spreadsheet with your different opportunities and your hours log, and then maybe even like a Google Doc with a journal. So then you can kind of start journaling and tracking some of those experiences. That way it's always something you have on you. If you can have the app on your phone and it's connected to your Gmail, so it's really easy to access. I tend to use a lot of those types of things to keep track of my life. So that tends to be a really helpful way to go about it. Let's see, what other questions do we have? Oh, there was a couple questions on the cadaver lab. So would someone be able to talk about how to sign up for labs with cadaver, or just other labs that are maybe in some of the not connected to courses, and when you can do those labs?
Yeah, I can talk about the cadaver lab. So if you're not familiar, Grand Valley has a cadaver lab. So it's pretty popular for our professional students. You have to have taken anatomy. And so if you're taking the BMS 208, which is the common route for pre-professional students, you have to have completed that class with a B or better. And then if you want to continue going on after you take the cadaver lab, which is BMS 309, you can even continue on and do the dissection lab, which is it's very advanced. Usually you would be kind of an upper level student before you take that.
There was a question, thanks Alexis. There was a question on shadowing as well. So kind of the best person to shadow, someone had mentioned they were interested in being a trauma surgeon.
Sure.
And so would you maybe kind of talk through a little bit more about shadowing and how to go about that?
Yeah, so just a few thoughts on shadowing. Use shadow, so using trauma surgeon as one, if there's a way that you can connect to somebody in that field, maybe not specifically trauma, but just surgery in general, so that you can see that, it's really great to test that out and make sure that you are still interested in it. I have students all the time that they might feel like they're called to one specialty, but actually they shadow it and it's quite different than what they thought it would be. The other thing is med schools, talking about on those lines, they don't want students to be totally committed to a specialty coming in. They want you to be open to a variety of different areas. So in terms of shadowing, it's great to use that is a chance to get some variety. See some different modes of practice. See, say, a hospital or a small clinic. If you're going into veterinary, you want to see maybe small animal and large animal, or maybe exotic animals. If you're going into pharmacy, use it to see retail versus the hospital side. So use shadowing to really get a full understanding of the field that you're going into.
Great, thank you. There's a specific question on health sciences EFE in high school that included anatomy, and wondering if they could attend the cadaver lab without having taken a class. My hunch is no, but I'll defer to maybe Julie or Brian or Alexis to check on that.
I would say most likely not. That would be a department decision, though.
Yeah. And then the question about signatures from groups that you're volunteering with or shadowing. As far as I know, you don't need signatures, but you do need a contact information. So when you're logging the experience on your application, so whatever school you're applying to, you'll actually fill out a section for each experience that you have. So volunteering is one section specifically to, you know, Habitat for Humanity, and then your next section will be shadowing this person. So you'll need to fill out how many hours you did, when you did it, who you did it with, the supervisor, their information. So it's not necessarily a signature, but it is a contact person and information in case the school gets in touch with them.
I'd like to add on to that. If a shadowing experience goes really well, and you wanted to do it again, I would maintain that relationship. Ask if you are willing, if the person's willing to let you shadow again. If they are, see if you can do it for a while, and then maintain that relationship up until the time, and even past the time of your application, because you're going to need letters of recommendation. You'll also want to get to know faculty, because typically for letters, you want to ask faculty who you've had for courses, especially science courses, and practicing clinicians in the field that you're going into. So get to know your faculty. Even if you're doing well in the class, go to office hours, talk to them about their subject, talk to them about their lives. Faculty are interesting people. So get to know them and maintain those relationships so that they're willing to write you really strong letters of recommendation down the line. Because we read a lot of the letters of recommendation, and you can really tell when a faculty member knows the student really well, or if they didn't know them really well, because then they might write just more about their class, you know. So get to know your mentors.
Definitely. There's a question that I just saw pop up about volunteering in areas that are not specifically to the profession that you're interested in. And the answer is overwhelmingly yes. Definitely get clinical experience and experience with patients in the area that you're interested in. But then you definitely want to get non-clinical and experience outside of that as well. Schools definitely want to see and get to know who you are as a person and what makes you unique. And that always comes down to things that you're interested in, hobbies that you partake in, things that you like to do. And so find volunteering opportunities that can really speak to things that make you unique and who you are as a person. Schools are looking for well-rounded people who have varied interests. Like everyone applying to a medical or dental school has an interest in science, right? Because you're going to be going into a science profession. So be strong in that area for sure, but then also show them who you are and what makes you unique, and that can be done definitely through volunteering. Anybody else have something to add on to that as well? Okay, awesome. How many volunteer hours should we have by the end? I think that's relative as well. Maybe one of the other advisors would have more of it's hard because it's just different depending on what you do clinically and what classes you have when you apply. Does anybody want to ballpark that number?
I don't know, it's hard to put a number on it, like you said, because there's so many different experiences, but overall, like, they would rather see you volunteer for Habitat for Humanity for a year than just maybe go on one build and then maybe do some other thing this other day. they want to see that you're committed to something and that you're passionate about something. So try not to think about it as like checking the boxes or like getting to that magical number. It's more, you know, just getting those experiences, having some breadth and depth, like I said before, you know, having a little bit of like the research and the shadowing and the volunteer work, but, you know, making it so it's a significant experience.
For sure. All right, I think we got to all the questions if I am monitoring things correctly. And if we didn't get to your question, please, please, please feel free to just reach out and email us or make an advising appointment, and we can speak more to that and give you a little bit more context for what you're looking for. But yeah, I really appreciate everybody coming out and spending some of your Friday with us, and we hopefully will get to see you all at some point, whether it's virtually or in person when it's safe to do so.
Great, thank you everybody. Like I said, we will send out, so we're gonna send out some links after this. We'll send out the PowerPoint slides and then also the link to the recording. So thank you all so much for giving up part of your Friday afternoon before classes and spending this time with us. And we look forward to getting to know you better. Have a good first week next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you.